On the eve of the end of the transfer window, we are talking about transfers, how they work, the role of chairman, managers and indeed agents in them. And it's there where we'll start part 2 of our programme this evening. The role of agents. How do you feel, Sky, when you hear a term which is often used, that when money goes to agents, it's going out of the game?
It's not going out of the game if the agent is playing a legitimate role. I mean, there are plenty of agents that have looked after players their whole careers. And what we've got to remember as well is that with a lot of the deals, agents get paid over the length of a player's contract. So I saw Paul Stretford took a lot of criticism, and I was thinking, well, Paul Stretford's looking after Rooney. Rooney's the best talent we've had in years. When you work out how much he gets over a 4-year period, is that really a lot to look after one of the best footballers in the world? So I think that if the agent is playing a legitimate role, then fine. What we can't have is just one-way traffic where people keep talking about bad agents, because people will believe that that is the judgment and it's a sweeping generalisation. So, in short, the good agents, to me, are the agents that look after a player or look after a club on a long-term basis, look after their interests and don't compromise themselves. The bad agents are just the guys, the brokers, the middlemen, that don't really care who they're looking after. They're just trying to take money out of the game. Those are the guys, in my eyes, that are taking money out of the game. I've looked after players from the age of 15 and now they're in their late 20s, and we play a legitimate role with them. We've helped them in their careers, helped them on and off the pitch. And when we receive money, we receive money over a long period of time, over 4 years, 5 years. And in some cases, you can't necessarily take money out of a deal because you feel, do you know what, on this deal, we're not going to take anything. But the agents that are just going around, popping up in deals, and then all of a sudden, I'll get a phone call from someone saying, I'm in this deal. Or you'll hear about an agent being on a paperwork of a deal and you think, well, what did you do? Now, the agents that the clubs get upset with are the agents that do not do a legitimate role and do no work and then get paid. And I think any agent who's worth his salt is not happy with that situation. We need agents that are representing players, clubs, officially. Unfortunately, we've got some agents that are representing managers, and then they represent managers, they've got an interest in the player, they've got an interest in the deal. Then all of a sudden, how can that deal, to me, be a legitimate deal? If you're going to have an agent representing a player officially, and he's done a legitimate job for that player, then nobody should have a problem. But unfortunately, you're never going to see a headline, agent has represented player properly over 15 years and has done his job well.
That's boring, isn't it?
Not in my lifetime.
But to be honest, I absolutely agree with what Scott said there.
100%.
It's not coming out of the game if the agent is actually looking after the player. That player needs to be really looked after. But you do get agents who come in, do a deal and disappear. Yeah. And that's the ones that we don't like. And Sky will be right. He'll be a player that Sky represents. He's known him since he's 15, and he'll get a phone call saying, I'm in on the deal. It's bizarre. It's not regulated in the right and proper manner.
He mentioned that there are clubs that use particular agents to go and broker deals for them. Do you
No, we don't. We look for the player and then we find the agent and we do the deal. We have no preferred agents, so to speak. We do the deal with whatever agent is around for the player. And that's it.
There are a lot of clubs out there that hire these so-called agents to tap players up. I'm going to say it. I know that sounds controversial, but that's the truth. They'll have...
Just say it again, Darragh.
There's a lot of clubs, I don't want to repeat myself twice, there's a lot of clubs that will pay agents just to play the role of a tapping-up merchant, to get into other clubs' players. You know what I mean? To make moves happen. That is the role they play. I know that goes on. I've seen it going on all the time, but what Sky is saying and Brian is saying is right. If they do it professionally, I've got no problem paying an agent if they do their job professionally and do it in the right manner. I've worked with a few who are very professional. Sky sounds very professional and the type of agent I'd like to work with. Do you know what I mean? Who's interested, yes, is his client, but above all, be professional, do the deal in the right manner and represent his client. We had an agent in the summer, as a quick story, that we had a lad that we've had at our club 3 years. He hasn't played. It's time for him to move on. He's got a year left. Barry Fry, who knows everyone in the game, has got the boy a 3-year deal at another club in League Two on the same money he's on with us. And all the boy has to do is go there. His agent, who we haven't heard from for 3 years since he first brought the boy, comes on the scene. He's a lawyer, and straight away he rings up this other club in League Two and he says, right, my boy's on his way, but before he comes, I need 30 grand. The other club just go, bang, deal's dead. Player's still with us, seen out the last year of his contract, he's nowhere near the first team squad and he's in limbo. And it frustrates me. Because you look at the player and you say, what are you doing, lad? You're 26, you haven't played, you got a 3-year deal on the table, and this agent, out of nowhere, is more interested in himself than actually getting your career back on track.
And what do you think, Sky, when you hear a story like that?
I mean, for every story like that, you know, there are other stories about agents not conducting themselves like that. But I think that a clear message needs to be sent out to players. And the message is that take your time over agreeing a contract, and then once you sign the contract, honour your contract. Now, ever since I started being an agent 15 years ago, no player of mine has ever broken a contract. And you'd think that that wouldn't cause problems, but it does cause problems because you've got, if a player is not worth anything to a club, then honour your contract. Off you go. We're not going to offer you one. If a player's worth something to a club and his contract's running down, as Darragh said earlier, all of a sudden it's a problem. So when Sol Campbell honoured his contract, you know, it was a problem to a lot of people. But, you know, in my eyes, you know, fans have got to send out a clear message to players. If you don't want players to sign a 4-year contract and then say, I'm putting in a transfer request, I want to leave, by the same token, no matter what their situation is, if they are honouring their contract, a player shouldn't get any stick. But unfortunately, players get stick if they honour the contract, if they don't honour the contract, if they put in a transfer request, if they ask to leave. And then for an agent, for an unscrupulous agent, it's very easy to say to a player, sign that contract, it doesn't matter. After a year, I'll get you out of there, or I'll just tell you to leave, or you can do something silly and they'll have to sell you. And that causes a problem in the game, and it's too easy for agents to say that to players.
I just think that a lot of players do not take responsibility for their own careers.
Big time.
And they listen to the agents and basically they're not getting best advice. And, you know, I've seen that a lot. In the Championship this year, there's been 1 or 2 players that have had moves to a certain club on decent money. The agent said, no, wait for something else. And those players are still looking for clubs. It's outrageous.
That's exactly what's happened to us.
And it's happening a lot, and it's happening a lot more. And it's basically not best advice. So I would suggest to the players that they really need to look at their own careers and their own pathways.
Take responsibility.
And take that responsibility.
But we don't want advice to be, and I know these two might disagree with me on this, we don't want a manager or a chairman publicly saying about an agent, you've given bad advice just because it didn't suit them.
No, I agree with that. But I agree with that, Sky. There's no argument with that. But best advice, you know, sometimes it's for the best for the agent, and that's the problem.
Yeah, of course.
And that happens an awful lot.
Yeah. You tell me the answer to that story. If you're the player's agent and he hasn't played for 2 years, he's got 1 year left, and he's got a 3-year deal on the table that you haven't negotiated, what are you going to tell the player? Go or not go? Well, what would your answer be to the player, Sky?
I mean,
I'm asking a question. What would your answer be?
No, I don't disagree with your grievance there.
You're not answering the question.
No, but what I'm saying is that agents often publicly, a manager will say something about an agent, he's given bad advice or he's conducted himself badly because the deal hasn't gone their way. And what I'm saying is that we can't allow that to happen because it's possible that an agent has conducted himself in the right way, but the deal just hasn't happened for the club. That's what I'm saying.
But why would any player be happy sitting on the bench anywhere?
No,
They're footballers, surely they want to play, don't they?
Well,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where...
That is, in principle, is correct. And we want our players to play, but, you know, you've got to have 20-odd players. Yeah. You can only pick 11. Yeah. You're trying to make my job harder, by the way, by saying that. So, you know, you have that squad, and if you have to have the ethos of everybody together in that dressing room. So there is a reason for, you know, they're in the squad and they're part of it.
And that's probably when you don't value the influence of agents, because I'm not saying that Sky does this, but if he's a good agent, he probably does. He's in his player's ear saying, you shouldn't be a bit part player, you should be playing somewhere else.
No, but
it depends how your club functions, really. You know, I remember we got promotion at the end of last season and against Nottingham Forest, and every single one of our players who were in the team, who weren't in the team, were in that dressing room celebrating, because every single one of them were part of things, and that's how we do things at our place.
See, in my eyes, a player, I come from a sporting background. I was in the Olympics. I played at quite a high level in sport, and what I've seen at all sports is that if you haven't got any stickability and you don't win your battles and you don't jump the hurdles and you look for a way out as soon as things are going badly for you, you ain't going to make it.
Yeah.
So, to me, a good agent should be advising a client to try and win his battles. Most players can't play every week, and you're going to have a period where you're not playing. But how are you going to view that? Are you going to try and win your battle? That's what I love. I love Michael Carrick, because Michael Carrick went to Man United and he played for a bit and then he didn't play for a period, and then everyone was like, he's out the team, he's off. Last year, Michael Carrick played nearly every game. So there are benefits in sticking with it and winning your battles.
But that's good advice from an agent. You know, that's what I would expect a good agent to be saying to his players. Hang in there, you're at the right club, and it comes good.
And they do exist, like I've said to you. But like I said to you, there's the flip side.
And don't footballers need protection from people like you?
Absolutely.
Who are hard-nosed businessmen?
Of course. Well, listen, absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't mind if their father doing it for them, if they have an agent or whatever else. I don't mind dealing with agents. I deal with them all the time. As long as they do things that he's described a very professional manner of doing business, and I've got no problem doing business with people like that. I would do business with him easily because he's a pro. But you don't get a lot of them, and I've met tons of them. I'm sorry to say, large percentage of them aren't like you. And certainly don't act like that.
Hence, you spent 265,000, was it, last year on agents? You consider that money well spent?
No. No, because at the end of the day, I've said to the players themselves, I'll tell you right now, League 2 and League 1, it was a lot easier signing players. I'll tell you what, I'd sign a player in 5 minutes, and I used to sit there with the agent, and the agent would just, I'd say, the player's paying you, and the agent would go, OK. In the Championship, it's a different story altogether. I don't know what it's like in the Premier League.
Well, what is it like, Brian, in the Premier League?
Well, Nick Hammond, our director of football, he deals with that, and our chief executive, they deal with the contracts and they do those deals. I mean,
he's telling porkies now. I did a deal with Nicky Hammond at half-time the other night, and he cancelled the deal.
That's not
we sold him a player, he wrote me a cheque at half-time, and he's cancelled the deal. He's ripped it up at full-time.
That is quite true. But no, he does the deals. But the thing for me is to find the player. I identify the player, or the staff do. We do as a group, and then we do the deal, and then we have 3 or 4 clubs in for them, and some other clubs offering them more money. But I know that they have to come to us. I know it's the right thing, and we've had that numerous times.
Thank God for directors of footballs. That's all I'll say.
I agree.
They have to be in football.
I
for
agree.
me. Every club should have one.
Yep.
Nicky Hammond's brilliant at his job.
He is.
Barry Fry, brilliant at his job. Without Barry Fry this week, I'm telling you right now, I don't know what would have happened. It would have been a bad situation, And
does that make life easier for agents as well?
A major problem in football are the unlicensed agents and the unprofessional agents. And unfortunately, there are a lot in football. It's not like in banking where, to be a CEO of a company or to be a high level in the finance industry, you've got to be qualified in a certain way. The question needs to be asked, how are these guys qualified? I've met guys that say they're agents, and I can't see how they're qualified to be an agent to represent the interests of a player.
Because they're allowed to use your licence, aren't they? That's how they end up going out there and saying they're an agent. They use other people's licences.
So unlicensed agents don't come under the jurisdiction of the Football Association. So they're running around the wild, wild west, signing up players and doing deals and getting people to front it for them. And that's a massive problem, because regardless of what you say about the industry, it has to have a governing body. It has to be licensed. You have to know where the money's going. And I think we talked about earlier about where the money's going. The public and everybody in the game needs to know where the money's going. When you've got an unlicensed agent, if that agent gets paid, no one knows where it's going.
Is this where it gets a little bit fudged when we hear about undisclosed fees? Because we don't know where that money is going. Could be this amount for the transfer fee to the club, this amount for that agent, this amount for that agent.
A lot of the time that's just between the clubs. One club doesn't want everyone to know how much money they've got, so then they won't get stiffed in the market type thing. But he's right. I mean, you tell me about the test. To do that agent's test apparently is very difficult. Apparently only 7% of people pass it. Yeah. It's that difficult. Yeah. And then you meet these people, like Sky's saying, you're thinking, have they passed that test? But they haven't. And apparently FIFA or whoever are going to do away with the test. Apparently that's on the cards. So, because I've seen the test, I've seen the process, and you have to be super intelligent to do it, pass it, get your licence and use it.
Brian, let me ask you, what would football be like without agents?
What would it be like without? I mean, we had, when I was playing in the 80s, there was I think it was about 2 agents flying around, and that was it. And we did our own deals. The only problem we had then was we were negotiating deals with people like Darragh, who's obviously good at negotiating a deal, and you've got a young player sat in front of a manager, and the deals weren't fair and they weren't right and proper.
Well, that's a bit strong.
No,
he's trying to say now that I'm, taking advantage of youngsters.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying at that time it was like that. Because for me, if you're in any negotiation, you have to have a win-win. I need to be happy. The chairman needs to be happy, and if that's not the case, there's a real issue. So we try to have win-win situations. That would be the only thing I would say. I think that the players need their agent to do the deal, to speak to the owner, speak to the chairman. So that's what they need.
Taking on a point that Guy said earlier about responsibility, footballers do need to take responsibility for who represents them. And I accept it's hard, because when you're a young man, you don't necessarily know who are the best people to represent you. But I would say, at a high level now, these guys are so powerful and they earn so much money. Beckham took the right route for me, and I might be doing myself out of work here, but Beckham said, I want a manager, I want someone to look after my brands, I want someone to do this. I can never understand why, you know, an agent would have 500 players and try and say to people that they're looking after those players. To me, you can't look after 500 players. You can look after, if you've got 10 staff, you've got 50 players, you've got one person for 5 people, I can understand that. But I think football's going to go that way, I really do. I think the big name players are going to realise that if an agent's getting £1 million a year, for instance, from a deal, just to say a number, you know, but they can get top corporate people looking after them. Give this guy 250, give that guy 125, have a branding guy, a corporate guy, have an agent, have people around him.
Imagine having to deal with all these people when they do a contract. I'm going to have 6 of them now instead of 1.
No,
I know what you're saying.
You won't be dealing with those people in a contract. But, you know, there's so much for footballers to do. They've got so much power. They've got a platform. Do something humanitarian. Set up charity projects. Do something corporate. Set up some businesses. You know, set yourself up. David Beckham is the model, and maybe there'll never be another one of him.